Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline studio. I'm Sybil Muschik and behind the camera is Joshua Blanc. This morning we have a request that we do a study of a waterlily, some clouds in the water, and a few rushes in the background. So I have assembled various items here to look at. This is from one of our photo shoots on the lake. So a few waterlily pictures and some different views. And here are some rushes and the clouds. So we're trying to create a composition that will satisfy all those elements as per request. Now I have one piece that I've done already. Not too unhappy with this. My paint a little separated on the waterlily, but it looks okay. And you can see the clouds and you get the feeling of the shimmery of light here and the water. So it looks like water, so we're good to go. All right, so I already have my paint. We're using the Shiva oil paints and Daniel Smith. And these are printmaking inks that, print and they stay fluid until you print them on paper. So that's really nice. And a few different qualities so that they don't soak through the paper. They're wonderful to work with. I highly recommend trying them. So let's give this a start. Now, we'll keep this one handy for reference. I've created a drawing that I've put underneath the 8x10 gel plate, and you notice I've got it in reverse. This is because when we print it will look like this. So, and these are just for extra reference as we need them. So we're going to start rolling out a little bit of blue for the background. And I've got some ultramarine and some phthalo blue. These are so dark that you can't tell what they are. So this is phthalo green and sap green. And some sepia for outlining, some yellow. I have some burnt plate oil that's this is our burnt plate oil. It's for reducing the paint so that it becomes more fluid, as you can see. And we're going to be doing outlining with that. And it's basically just linseed oil that's been thickened in light. And I have a variety of University Winsor Newton brushes, except for this one, I guess. This is a mezzo. This is from Opus, which is an art supply store in Vancouver, British Columbia, and I think there's one in Kelowna. So it's a candy store for me. I go in there with so much money in my, dedicated to art supplies. Otherwise, I could just get really crazy. So we're just going to roll out a little bit of our ultramarine. Just make a little area here. Now you can see how dark that is, so we have to bring it up in value. And a little bit of white. And that's pretty close to the color of the, you can see. And we're going to add a little phthalo just to cool it down. Now some people call this phthalo, so it all depends where you went to school, I guess. All right, and here we are. Maybe a little bit more white. Bring it up a notch. That looks good. Okay. We'll put that on there. So just roll it till it's nice and smooth. And you don't have any white spots showing. Make sure your roller is entirely covered. This is one of the speedball rollers, and it's rubber. So we're going to just go around. Keep charging your brayer. With such a large subject, you've got a certain amount of control. So you can go around the objects. You want the water to be nice and smooth so that the reflections of the clouds will show. I'm just going to sculpt around the stem here. And the water lily. So I brought in a little roller as well. We're going to just sculpt around our water lily pad. And because we have the image underneath and I can see it reasonably clearly, I can just wipe back. So roll off your rollers. And then using a brush, here's our stem. So I can just, and it's probably good to have a little bit of the blue here. There we go. I'm just going to charge this one a little bit more and just cover some of these areas. Now sometimes the paint lifts, you have to be careful. That's what's happening right now. We might put a little bit more burnt plate oil. I think that's the problem. The thing to do is to not panic when situations like this happen. There we go. Just work with it. And what we can do is just add a little bit more of that. The ultramarine is quite thick, and I think that's probably part of the problem here. And a little bit of white. There we go. And give it a little bit more coverage is what we wanted. Without getting too oily. Then the paint just sort of squashes out. And give you a few variations in tone, all to the good. All right, so brayer off. Now we're going to get to the drawing part. I find it's best to outline some of these things. So here's our water lily. And using sepia, I'm going to outline. I've added a little bit of burnt plate oil so the ink is fairly smooth. Now my paints are fairly old, and they've probably oxidized in the tubes. I haven't used them for a number of years. Sort of got stuck in acrylic, but now I'm looking at getting back to oil painting, so including on canvas, not just printmaking. So just draw this out, and even though we may possibly cover up these lines, at least we know they're there, and then we can get the detail, just sort of a center line in the lily pad. And then you just, maybe some broken line. There's a bit of a shadow here as well, which we have to account, and then draw your details through the shadow, because shadows are transparent, which makes them appear more like shadows, which is a good trick to learn. And then the inside, now you don't have to be as complicated as I'm being here, but there's sort of a central area, like a pod, and make sure that's an oval, so you get the perspective of it. And then these little divisions, and sort of a central dip. So it looks a little bit like a mushroom. So there's these lines going down, and then here you can see, now I don't know, maybe there's sepals. That's possible. Josh, what do you think? Sepals?
Stamens, maybe? I've never looked at the construction of one of those properly.
I don't remember them having any pollen on them, but you never know. Okay, that's something to research, people. I have a relative who is very good at identifying all sorts of things. And he might see this video and he might say, aha, that's such and such, and then we'll know for sure. Okay, let's do the stem. And the stem disappears in the water. Now I've changed the composition somewhat. This leaf here is not indicative of a water lily leaf. So your prerogative. I've looked at some of them. Here's the other one that it's often when you're doing a composition, you know, take all your reference materials and then work with them to make them work for you as to what you want to say. And probably there's a bit of a shadow here. I'm not sure we'll paint it in. Sometimes, you know, prints should be reasonably simple, not too complicated. Draw in what is necessary. And a lot of these little veins won't show up directly. They're sort of like tree pictures in a way. And we'll make sure we have this shadow outlined. Okay. For sure this part is shading the lily pad leaf. And now let's put in some of those bulrushes, starting with the back ones. And at the base, there's a tiny little bit of a spot, and then you get the reflection happening. And sometimes you get the shadow as well, depending on the light shining on it. So you might have a shadow going this way. Reflection is pretty close to the same direction as the item itself. You can cross them. Maybe this one's got a broken tip. You know, this is where you have fun, and just put these things in. Okay, and then cross another one. Sometimes they have little spots at the end. And do your reflection. And let's take out a few of the, just using a Kleenex or some soft such thing, let's take out a few of the clouds. So you just sort of, because your paper that you're printing on is white, when you do this and take some of the paint off, then suddenly clouds will appear. And this is a quick and easy way to get that indication. Big clouds close to, and then little tiny ones here as it. So think about perspective as well. Okay. So just shoring up some of these little, I might take out some of this here. And let's paint in that shadow right away. And there was a reflection on here. Now always be considerate of, and often sometimes I'll put an X where the sun is so that you don't have, you know, shadows going all over the place. And if you don't like an area, you just can wipe it away. Make something thinner. And you've got pretty well all the time in the world to do this kind of thing. Unlike acrylic, where you're fighting time because it's drying so fast. Okay. Put that one back. Okay, now for the next stage. So taking a sort of a smaller brush, and we're going to start with some burnt plate oil. And you want your yellow as bright as possible. We can add a little bit of red later for some of the shadow areas, but start off with keeping this really bright. Add just a little bit more to make it. Now, not too much, and you get that sort of broken effect, which you may or may not want. And paint in the direction of the curve. So it shows the movement of the petal, that it's going curving towards the left here. Okay, that's good. Outlining will give you that detail that you want. With prints, you are not going to get as sharp an image as you would, say, if you were painting it. So anything you can do to create good, you know, discrete lines that explore a certain structure. And we'll make those little petals quite a bit lighter. And in here. Okay, so and try not to obscure the details, but you can always paint them in again. We're losing a few of the details, so okay, let's clean that brush with picking up a little bit of the brown. And we're going to use some of the white burnt lead oil. In here. In the top. And we'll just paint all the details back in with the other little brush. We've lost a few of them. No problem. Okay. The top here is going to be quite bright. It's catching the light. Back to this brush and then just twirling it to give me a nice sharp edge. So you can just put that back in. Some of these details. And just about everything prints, so that's the nice part about printmaking. A few shadows here. Realms underneath, you're going to get a little bit darker. And down in here. Okay, now more of the bulrushes. And I can see them in between the clouds. Don't forget to put those little circles in where the and they're all over the place, so you have they're not very how shall we put it, strong, so they sort of meander all over the place and sometimes they break. Now these are different than cattails. Cattails have a flat leaf. These are just brushes. And the reason I chose them is that the bulrushes are just too thick and would take over the reflection, and so then you don't see clouds, which was part of our request. So This seemed to be the best solution for doing that. Okay, one last thing here, and we're going to put the greens in. And I'm not sure we need that much burnt plate oil, but it would just go into the white. If you use your colors, make sure that color is in every part of your composition. That way it ties your composition together. Now we need it here at the bottom of the lily. And the stem. And then the lilies themselves get just a little bit more oil to smooth it out. We're going to add a little bit of the phthalo blue to it. And then we're going to just lighten it up a little bit more. Add some yellow. And they are not so saturated in color as the lily, which is why I'm graying it a little bit. Now, I think that's pretty close. Okay, so you can see it's still pretty intense color. More green. So we're just making the water lily pads a little bit bluer than everything else. Now I don't know if these veins will print from underneath, so I might just put them in again. Okay. And that color should go in here as a stripe on the, there we go. And a little bit underneath. Now we need a shadow color, so we're going to add just a little bit of the red to our green color here. So it makes kind of a tertiary color that, and darken it a little bit, just to show that there's a shadow here. So shadows are, you have usually parts of the complement of whatever color they're on. So not all shadows are blue. Or gray. They take on the color of whatever it is you're painting. And of course, if you want to go really vivid, you can. You might put a few shadow tones in here as well. That will bring out a few more of the details. Okay, now my yellow seems to have separated a little bit. So let's retouch that. I mean, it looks interesting, but it wasn't what we had in mind. So always be in control of what you're doing. If you see something is happening, Then, and sometimes it's interesting and you want to leave it. You've discovered a whole new thing. So you know, go with what's in front of you. A few more small touches. And again, the contour. So what we're doing is contouring. So we're sculpting the direction, this three-dimensionality of it. And I'm going to just finish with putting our little veins in again. They're underneath there somewhere. You didn't want them too prominent anyway, so it was all to the good. Now what we could do is green up the rushes, but looking at it, and here's where you can take advantage of something that's working. And I'm not going to do it. We just leave it as, they start this way anyway, right? And then they green up. But now we're going to try and print this, and we'll see how it goes. This is cardstock paper, and it's just Staples. They're a generic brand, and it's really lovely paper. I'm using my Brayering, which is a Japanese printing tool. And the nice part about it is you don't have to wait with oil printing inks. What you can do is also use watercolor paper, but you need to moisten it slightly. Also with any printmaking papers. And we'll see what we have. Okay, what we can do is we can just touch up some of these areas slightly so they're not quite so prominent. All allowable. I kind of like this white spot. And everything else looks good. So there you have it. We have our request done, and thank you so much for the request. I think that's fun to do. I had to really think about how I was going to accomplish this. Our clouds are certainly look, you know, it still looks like water, and the clouds are in the water, so we might need to shore up a couple of these. Maybe there's another little, I don't know where this, we must have lost a bulrush here. But that's okay, we can put them back in. And it's just a little bit on the, we can blot it off just to soften it a little bit. It's a little strong. So all these things, you know, you do what you have to do to make your print work. So, well, well, that was a lot of fun, and I do appreciate getting requests as long as they're not, you know, not doable in this medium, and you know, like architectural structure with piles and piles of details. I would probably attempt it in a simpler way, and that's the way with printmaking. Is you're not going to get the graphic aspect of it like you would with pencil and acrylic paint, where you can do real hard edge things. But printmaking has its own sort of, you know, cachet, if you like. It has a certain way of looking that you can't get with any other medium. And that's what makes them exciting and unusual, and maybe more saleable. There are lots of acrylic and oil paintings out there, but not so much printmaking. So have fun with this. As usual, take care of yourselves and your families, and be kind to one another. It sure helps. Bye for now.